round for everyone to speak on this question that is the topic of the call. So I'll let this be the intro also, so we have more time for it. Yeah, so in the last retrospective we had, that is where in the stewards call we get together, and anyone is welcome to join, but it's part of our sprint retrospective. So maybe Tam, do you want to explain that part since it's your thing? And then how did we come up with this topic for today?
Did you just ask me?
Yeah. If you could share a little bit the process of the retrospective and how we got to this topic, that will open up in the call too.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Let me start with sharing the retrospective board. Give me a moment. So generally, at the end of a sprint,
it's in the agenda.
Oh, fantastic. So generally, at the end of a sprint, we take some time to inspect what we've done, what's going well, what's could be done better. Hold on, I'm just going to share this. And then for the things, I mean, the purpose is to celebrate. This is the old format. The purpose is to celebrate the things that went well. You know, we usually take some time to just revisit the last 2 weeks, which is the cadence of the sprint, and celebrate the things that went well together as a team, things that went well on an individual layer, a working group layer, community layer, and concentric circles out. And the things that didn't go so well, that could have been done better, that we might have the opportunity to learn from, and then actions to improve. So this is the way we used to do it. We experimented with a new format, which was essentially a metaphor of a boat and a beautiful island. What surfaced this time, one of the things that we could do better, or the anchor that held us back, was there was a conversation that was had earlier around some of the cultural practices that we have. Should we start inspecting those cultural practices and question why we have them, or open up a space to allow anyone who would like to bring some constructive criticism across some of these cultural practices? We could have an opportunity to be able to do that and make sure there's space where everyone can hear it. So that's sort of the backstory, and it was one of the 2 action items to bring into this sprint, and so it's one of the things that we're talking about in Softgov today. I hope that was sufficient.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. So, luckily we had this case study survey that happened recently, so we have some insights. There was 27 people that took this survey, so it's somehow a good number for like having a varied perspective of things that are working well or not working well. Most of the questions, I think most of you in this call took the survey, but the questions varied between like, what are the cultural practices of the TC? What are the ones that you like? What do you do in the TC? What drove you to be here? What are the things that you dislike? And what are the rituals that you participate in? Are there rituals that, something that you consider being a ritual that you dislike? So in this call, since we're pulling this action from the retrospective, I decided to focus on the things that were like negative aspects in the survey that I think we can look into it and work on. So I put them here. I'll go through that. So this call will go more or less like this. I'll just mention them briefly, and then we'll pass around and have this question being answered by everyone. And then we'll jump into the mural board that I made a space down here. The mural board where we have most of our cultural practices mapped. And then here beside, what are some ideas to address the cultural concerns that we're going to speak about? So these are some of the cultural practices, and they are like positively biased. And then I'll mention the ones that are negatively biased, and then we can address these ones based on the sharing circle that we'll have and put some ideas down here. And then hopefully we can pull some action items based on this board here. So, okay, so I'll go back here to share a little bit. And most of the ones that are here are things that were mentioned more than once. So I try to, there are some things, one or another, that were very case specific. And I try to avoid being too specific right now, just for us to have like an overview. So some of the insights of the things that are not going so well, and there was 2 questions that were asking for negative feedback in the survey, so I pulled from them both. So there are some inefficiencies in decision making, like sometimes it's hard to understand how to make decisions, and there is a general sense of bureaucracy. So this bureaucracy in specific was mentioned many times. And then some people feel bothered by the hierarchical structure of the TEC. And then also onboarding was a very mentioned topic. People wanting to contribute more but not knowing how, or feeling like it's hard to understand what is the TEC unless you read a lot of blog posts and watch many videos. Also in the organization part, like it feels like links are not organized somewhere, so you always have to be hunting around to find what you need. It's hard to contribute without coming to calls. Sometimes people take too long to speak and aren't mindful of time. The meetings feel very much the same, and this was put in the ritual area. So one negative aspect of the ritual is that it became like not creative in this sense. And then having to spend too much time in front of a screen to collaborate. This was a general feeling expressed in many different forms of like having to be present for a long time in order to get things done. Sprint planning feels overwhelming sometimes. The praise intervention was also mentioned quite often as something disappointing and concerning about the community. Hard to communicate, hard to contribute async. So it seems like the only way to contribute is coming to calls. Too much multitasking to be able to collaborate. An unspoken pressure to be able to do everything. So read everything that is out there, come to all of the calls, be on top of everything, participate in all of the things that are demanding attention. Something else that was like very present too was time zones. So some people find the time of the calls to be very late for them, and some people can't even participate because they are in Asia or Australia time zones. And lack of transparency with conflict management, of like not knowing what were the development of some things that happened or some conflicts that people saw being like present in the community and not really knowing how that evolved. So a lot of things, a lot of food for thought. Thank you, Lauren and Tim, for adding names here. So with that in mind, maybe like some things are already sparkling there. I'll pass this question around, and we can have like a sharing time, maybe 2 minutes each. Let me see, how much are we? Yeah, maybe like 1 minute and a half each, and then we can go to the mirror board. So, is there anything in the culture we should abandon? Does it feels like anything is holding us back? If so, how to make this transition? Or how some of these things that came up can be transformed into something that is positively affecting everyone. And I will pass to Chewy to kick us.
Hey, Levi. I would like to listen to someone else first. Yeah, I just don't feel that I can like to contribute with something valuable at this point. But yeah, see, like I want to see where the conversation starts. I'll pass it to Juanca.
Yeah, I was also cracking my mind, but I think that it's not so much like cultural things that we collectively promote, but individual things that like we bring into the table, like prejudices, like and like always sometimes thinking that we are right with the proposal that we make. And yeah, I think that it's very important to embrace feedback, and we say that we foster feedback, but sometimes like when feedback appears, we don't want it. So it's like being more open-minded, yeah, to when things come out, because when we present something, we always want everyone to say, hey, congratulations, you did it great. But what is really important is to be able to hear the people who says, okay, you did great, but this was your mistakes, and maybe you can improve that or this or that other way. And yeah, I feel that we promote feedback, but sometimes we when it takes to change things, that's when we are a little bit like defensive. I will pass to Nate.
Thanks, Wonka. Yeah, so I guess my answer to this question in terms of the culture that we should abandon, not so much abandon, but just kind of restructure. I do think we do a good job of flattening out our organization. And I think we do, a really good job collaborating and not having these types of structural hierarchies. But I do think there's a lot of social hierarchy. And one area that I think would be really beneficial to modify is the role of steward. Not in terms of like, what your position is or what your job is as stewarding a working group, but kind of taking a step back and relieving some of that natural authority that you have within a working group where you're guiding everything all the time. I think a good practice to mitigate this problem would be to allow others to run a working group meeting session, to have kind of like a rotating basis. Maybe somebody, because stewards are definitely the people who want to be the guiding hand, but you also don't want to be the face of it all the time, because you end up creating natural biases for your own ideas. And so I think that, allowing others to say, hey, you're going to run the working group meeting this week, and you're in charge of the agenda. I'm going to be there to help guide it if it goes off tracks. But, I want to give others a voice in terms of, their contributions and make them feel kind of, that leadership role. And I think that will flatten out of a lot of the social hierarchies that we create for each other. That's something that I would like to see changed a little bit. Other aspects of it, I think that are regarding, decision making. I think that there are a lot of small decisions that we want to make, but we want to have feedback on, and I just don't think there's a vehicle for getting that feedback. And so the advice process, while it's good for some decisions, it's not great for all decisions. I don't think, if I'm making a small decision within a working group, I should have to post it to the forum every time. Like, I think there should be some type of medium where I can engage in something, I get some type of feedback from the community. But those are the only two practices that I think that need revision, in my opinion, that I think create a little bit of barriers for everybody. And I will pass it to Ryder.
Well, I'm still processing what you said. I will say that being mainly from another community, coming here every time it feels novel, but in seeing the feedback from the community about how meetings can feel the same, I think that also dovetails nicely into Nate's feedback about switching up facilitators. And I know from past communities I've been in, it's great to have a rotating structure and having that like natural mentee mentor relationship too, or even just like letting it all go and be like, let's bring in someone from somewhere else to facilitate with our content and see how it starts with a game or something completely different, maybe in a low stakes environment at first, just seeing how to get creative, but also not too alarming for folks, I guess. I think there's a balance there. And I love what I'm hearing too, is that there's a need for somewhere to receive criticism and then to have next steps. So maybe that needs to be built out more to normalize it, kind of like how gravity is normalizing conflict. And I could talk about this forever. Do we have a timekeeper? I know that was one of the feedback things. Who's ready?
Would you like to be timekeeper?
Oh my gosh, I'm ready.
I will be timekeeper. Aloysius is ready, so I'll pass to Aloysius. I'll just wave. I'm going to wave the phone when it's time so it's not weird and loud, okay? Soft stop.
I love what Nate was saying about the facilitating too. And with the stewards, just like mentorship. It's like an opportunity to do that. But the thing that I have that I've been holding on to, that I've been seeing all over the place, and I'm like, how do we talk about this in the whole entire world, is shame practices. The counter to praise is shaming. I stumbled across this researching the culture here, and I found out that praise is like the good side, and then there's like shaming rituals that came out of Burning Man, and I've seen that follow into the culture. And I've also seen shaming in the forums. When we had that question that came up about whether or not people could change their addresses, I got a sense of that, like, hurting people, like I had to learn the hard way, so you have to too, or this sort of like discipline kind of thing that was coming out energetically, which to me, that's wound, that's like shadow, that's trauma, that's like not actually helpful in a growing or learning environment. And my curiosity is, if it's an experimental place in an environment, like at what point are we ready to evolve and have people go around and be like, hey, I'm curious about this thing that was said here. That energy is going to follow people and kind of be what cuts folks out of things and excludes individuals. Like, how do we counter that? How do we counter the shame practices that are so embedded in our conditioning? A lot of people didn't learn how to like learn in a healthy way or teach in a healthy way, and it shows. I don't know. That was a lot.
Do you want to pass it to somebody?
Yeah, sure. How about Lauren? Has Lauren gone?
I have not gone. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's interesting, like talking about like shame and then also thinking about praise. I know that a lot of people really like praise, and then it makes people feel good a lot of the time. But I feel like praise also creates a lot of contentious issues. And sometimes, like, I mean, I know we're already discussing this, and there's like discussions on like how to integrate praise with source cred and how to like better quantify it. But yeah, this just seems to create like such a crazy headache. Like, it's so nice to just be verbally appreciated for like accomplishments, but then the second it gets tied to like monetary value, it becomes like so sticky and weird and hard to navigate. And then I don't know, like I noticed it in also Give It, because we use praise as well, and it's like sometimes the praise channel is just like full of like people who didn't do the thing getting praised for doing the thing, and then like people who did do the thing like not getting noticed for doing the thing. And it just creates all this like stickiness, because like, oh, if it's just like people giving compliments to other people, it doesn't really matter, because then it's just like the compliments make you feel good. But then when it's like, yeah, tied into like how you're progressing forward, and then like your influence in the community is based on like how well people recognize the things that you do with praise, I think. And then like the praise debate thing just is like so crazy. And I feel like praise is weird and sticky and in some ways good, but I'm glad that we're already looking at it. And I think that this is like one of the things, part of our culture, that like definitely needs some more assessment. But I don't have the best ideas on like how to resolve all of that and move forward. Yeah, just those are my thoughts on that. I guess I'll pass it to Zepti.
Oh. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, one thing that really bothers me a bit is like the steward thing. When people becomes a steward, it's because the stewards nominate them, and I feel it's weird. Like what if, I don't know, Lauren wants to become a steward, and she needs, it's very centralized, the process to become a steward. And I had something else, but I do not remember now. Yeah, in regards of the time, I'll just pass it because I do not remember. I'll pass it to Nick.
Hey, so I like Nate's idea of like rotating the hosts for the meeting. My questions are kind of just like, is there any way to make the meetings more decentralized? And that kind of aligns with that. It just feels like the steward needs to be there all the time. And I'm just wondering if there's any way for the working group to function. For example, if like the steward isn't there, or also if there's alternatives to, doing video calls for meetings, because like some people might need more time to come up with or to share their ideas or communicate their ideas effectively. And they might work better sharing it by typing it out or something. Me as an example for that. Yeah, just finding ways to just like truly decentralized coordination for working together as a working group.
Thanks, Nick. Can you pass to someone?
I pass to Tam.
Oh, let me turn my video on too. So it's been really interesting to hear this. I'm really glad we're having the session. When I look at the list, I actually see so many things that were like, yeah, we've been working on that for a long time. We're not there yet. I see a lot of the participation kinks that we've sort of identified for a while, and maybe there's just some inherent difficulty in things like making the TEC more understandable for people as they come in, and finding things that people can do, find ways to collaborate immediately. I know that's a challenge that we've been working on for a long time. And listening to people speak, it's interesting. As I'm writing our funding proposal for the stewards, I'm going back to, for the Stewards Working Group, I'm sort of going back to the criteria to be a steward and the commitment and the time commitment, but also the hours that are required for working group leads. So there's working group leads and then there's stewards. I think that facilitating meetings is really nice, and the times that Nate has taken over for the sprint planning, I think have gone very well. And I think that maybe there can be more of that in a working group by working group basis. Is that 30 seconds? I'm timing too. I have 30 seconds left. No? Okay. Well, then I will pass back to Liviade.
It was 1 minute 30. I think it was 1 minute 30. Right?
Yeah, I was timing.
I've been timing 1 minute 30. Yeah, but of course, when you see me wave at everybody, finish your thought. You're muted.
You're muted, Tim.
Lord have mercy. Just saying, as I'm putting together this, the drafting the proposal for funding the stewards, it's really sort of a moment to be like, why stewards? Like, why is it important? And why does it matter that we have them? Or do we not even need them? So it's also an introspective moment for me about the stewards in the TEC and how we onboard and offboard stewards and what would be a beneficial practice for the TEC. So there's a lot of that already in my mind. It's very nice to hear other people's thoughts about that too. And I'll pass back to you, Liviade, to pass on.
I'll pass to Griff.
Sorry, you caught me just as I was transitioning to my computer. So I am, I love this practice. This is really good. We definitely don't have enough space, in my opinion, for the constructive feedback. I do think it's all at once to do it all in one call, but because there are so many really important points, I feel like it would be in some ways easier to maybe just like break them into pieces and try to attack them one at a time. The time zone thing is really hard, and I don't have a good solution because like I feel like some of the criticism is like counter some of the positive aspects. Like we have all this time to be vulnerable with each other and like be in synchronous contact, and then like, but how do you do that with time zones? And so there's like some of the things that are like the yang to our yin, that is hard to really solve. I definitely like, I would really like to somehow balance praise. I feel like there is a lot of value in culturally communicating like the boundaries in creative ways that we would like to hold, and I don't think we do that very well. But I guess the original question is, what cultures do we want to get rid of? What cultural practices? Honestly, I feel like this ideal of decentralization, don't get me wrong, I'm all about it, but at the same time, that's not how things get done. So thank you for the timing. I hope that we can make sure that we always are also focusing on actually accomplishing tasks. And that usually takes leadership and in some ways centralization. I'll pass it to, let's see, who hasn't gone? Nick, did you go?
Yep.
Eduardo.
Thank you. I do feel the steward section, there is something I mentioned about of onboarding a steward. That's something that we, for example, is awkward, and I think we haven't talked about it. I'm talking by personal experience. Once a working group disappears, of course, your stewardship doesn't mean that it goes away, but then if by any other reason there is a possibility of that person leaving or that person can handle the timing or the times or whatever, how do we do that offboarding? And that's not something we haven't tackled, I feel, so far. And then secondly, I feel that this model of stewardship could take a little bit of sociocracy models, where aristocracy models have two very clear representative and leader, and then they are rotating constantly. And I feel that the cultural practices that we have are very good, but they need to be scaled. And in that sense, having this kind of sense of during the meetings, for example, intentions and distractions. Why don't we open the intentions for people claiming if they want to lead the call, if they feel ready to not maybe carry that call, but for the next one. So we kind of sort of be more aware of each other in the role of the working groups, and evolving the concept of stewardship to more of a collaborative effort or a joint effort in between two people from the working group. And then thirdly, I do feel that the other cultural practice that can be sort of evolved is this, I don't know how to express it, but I feel like we have such cultural practices that are we have taken them for granted. And I feel it could be nice to have this implementation of a system within the DAO or within the organization that every certain amount of time we go through the cultural practice that we take for granted and make sure that they are satisfying the needs or the goals and objective for the organization. So in a way, we can check if the praise works by the time we can check if the steward system works. Like, we can implement this from time to time to just make ourselves updated. At the same way we are updating constantly the technical part, we should be able to constantly also evolve the cultural part. That being said, I will pass it on to Honka. Shui. I don't know. Honka, I think I already went.
I already had gone, but I couldn't, I didn't feel prepared enough to contribute with something. I would just like to add to what Nate mentioned. I also feel that it's very interesting because, even me, in my own path through the TEC, I remember that I wasn't like a steward back then. I was just getting a hold of it. I could handle community calls, and it was really, really cool when finally someone pushed me and said, you got to handle the whole call. And I try to keep this memories close, because it's I feel that when you start disconnecting from other people and how they get it is when you start forgetting about this stuff, right? So I found what Nate said very interesting about stewardship, about how it works and the effect it has in our community. But I would also add the question, if people start getting more engaged, how is this not their own path to stewardship? And how does this make a difference regarding who is maybe running the calls, or are we as stewards just mentoring figures in the community? And how can we redefine what could be confused with authority? Because I don't feel it should be in that direction. Yes, this is what I can add, and I'll pass it to back to you, Livy.
I think that David is the last one to go.
I have not gone either.
Hey, thanks.
Sorry, you too, Durgan.
Yeah, I'm here mostly to listen today and to try to get a sense of what Softgov is about, having not been part of this group officially yet. So with that, I will be mindful of my time and pass it on to Durgadas. Maybe after a few meetings, I will have some more comments. I do really appreciate all the work of the stewards and the phenomenal piece of writing that Liviade did on our covenant. Nice work there. And with that, I'll pass it to Durgadas. Thanks.
I'm just adding some praise to Sean there from Legal. He helped a lot on the covenant.
Nice.
Back to you, Durgadas.
Yeah, I think we should, particularly in certain kinds of calls, not necessarily in all calls, but certainly in calls where we have leadership like this one, like in Gravity, like in the stewards calls, that we should maybe try to find questions that would deepen our understanding of what we might be missing in terms of our cultural practices. Instead of intentions and distractions, maybe we could say, what is it that we have an intention about, which is a good thing, but what are we in denial of here? What is something that we need to talk about, but when we do talk about it, people clam up or pull back or shut down, or so that we can document those things and try to make it work. And you might get a bunch of noise out of that, but I think you'll find some golden shadow in there too, by looking. And so generally it's been my experience that once you go looking into the shadow of organizations, you'll find some really golden nuggets. And I will say that it's also important for those same groups to recognize that you're in a reward system. So because punishments and rewards proceed basically from the same psychological model, it is a psychological model that conceives of motivation like it is a manipulation of behavior. And so I think it's anytime you're in a reward system, you have to remember that that is just the truth. That is the context of what you're trying to do. And we talk a lot about the different ways to try to sabotage that process. But I still find that people bring their legacy stuff with them. And so can we find ways to sort of mine that stuff out and bring it in the forefront so that it can be processed and therefore handled. So so what we should sort of get rid of, I think, is this almost toxic positivity we have about some of these things, and see if we can't mine some of the shadow things out as a regular cultural practice.
I believe they call that toxic positivity hopium. We don't want to be indulging in the hopium.
Exactly.
That was really great. So can we jump into this mural board? The link is here on top of case study insights. And there is this board. This is a big board. Yeah, can you all see me moving in here? Is everybody on the board?
What's the quickest way to the notes link?
It's in Softgov chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put the mural link straight there too.
Right, there was just one final thing I wanted to say about that I didn't say because I waited a long time. But I think it's just important to recognize that every positive thing we do carries a shadow with it. And so hopefully through the practice that I'm sort of recommending, that duality will always be sort of recognized and highlighted, because it's the reality of something. So if we culturally encourage looking at that stuff and recognize that that's true, I think it would tremendously help everyone in the group, and many of the things that we see in the case study I think would be proactively dealt with through that kind of practice.
Yeah, that's really cool. If you could maybe, I don't know if it's possible because it's a complex thought, but if you could put some ideas in the sticky notes of how we could exercise what you're mentioning, that would be great. So the idea for this board, maybe someone just got now, is there is a lot of ideas already that came up from what we were sharing. So if we could put them in little action items in this board, or into like small ideas that we can start to group them and go deeper into each topic, like Griff was mentioning. And then we can find a few action items for each one of the topics and start addressing them.
Excuse me.
If anyone wants to invite
I just want to say
Mhm.
bye. My keyboards aren't working, so I'm gonna go figure that out. Yeah, I love this, getting everything out in small ideas instead of having certain voices be louder in conversation with a short amount of time. It's a great strategy, Olivia. And I look forward to looking at the board later.
Thanks for joining. And if anyone wants to bring music into the room, feel free to do that.
I requested access, but don't have it yet. I could just watch too.
Just sent you access.
Thank you.
Nice.
Is there anything specific to the color coding, or are they all the same?
No, it was just to be pretty.
Livy, can you please give me permission to the mural board as well?
Sorry,
I will DM you my email.
Oh, can you request access and then I can give you here?
Okay.
You did it already? You
just now.
That's not you.
blazingthirdeye@gmail.com. Request has been sent. There we go.
Okay, great. I got you here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing like concrete actions, right?
Yeah, it's possible. You see that writing is slowing down a little bit. Everyone can still continue writing, but maybe we can read them all, and after we listen, we just group them together and we see if there are clusters of some teams. And then we can have like little task forces to work on each one of these themes. What about Nick? You read them to us?
Read what, sorry? Each
Are
note?
you in the mural board?
Yeah.
Yeah, each note.
Okay. So we have working groups should create their own unique cultural practices. We have developed new meeting formats, centralized space for all TEC interactive content. So that's easier to share ideas, vote, and interact. Invite contributors to facilitate calls with specific themes. Sharing thoughts in a doc prior to meetings to save time, and also to make it so that people don't have to like actually attend the meeting at that specific time. Focusing meetings on what needs feedback. Guideline for bringing idea to reality. If there's an idea for the TEC. Separate rewards from praise. Feedback protocol guidelines. Rotative facilitation. Feedback practices, individual and groups. Could praise become just a praise system instead of a reward system? Make meetings not steward dependent. Open space for uncomfortable questions. Strengthen the goal of the TE Lounge. Shadow work sessions to get into shame. Evolve steward system fostering teamwork. Make sure that cultural practices are checked and updated. What sort of behavior do we want to see and how can we model it for missionaries? Framing, so stewards, I'm not sure what WGL is, sorry, are civil servants, not managers. Oh, working group leads. Okay. Have some time to redefine the role of stewards collectively. For hard to contribute async, moving discussions to the forum addresses this somewhat, but not all. Working group poll discussions make it to the forum. Deep questions and polls, what are we not talking about? Self-work, what are my prejudices? Address potential conflicts between the goals of Common Stack and the goals of the TEC. Improve the call for action in the orientation channel where people can work asynchronously. Onboarding guide with 3 main points to learn about the TEC. What would they be? Building more transparency around conflicts that are managed. I believe that's all of them.
Oh, thank you. And then we can start grouping them around and see. I think there are some clusters of like onboarding, stewards.
Weird, the board I'm looking at says TEC retrospective on it, but doesn't look anything like what you guys are looking at, so I'm a little confused.
Yeah, you have to investigate the board a little bit because we're down there.
Yeah,
it looks very small
down.
if you zoom out.
Yeah.
You can go like to the top where it has the people's names and then like double click on Livia or something and it'll take you there.
Oh yeah, I didn't zoom out enough. I was like, holy macro. Okay.
I just dropped a big
Oh,
black
great.
I see that. Thank you. That helped.
What's the TE Lounge?
It's an space to talk about non-related to work things. So it's to build and strengthen relationships, and yeah, to also have some time to like sparse our head, and yeah, not be only like working machines, but also yeah, take into account the different things that we all are passing through and living.
Can someone give me access to the board? Thanks.
Yeah, we're on top of the hour, and I think we did great progress in this call, and we got some like key points that we can continue working on. You're all welcome to continue organizing this board, and to, if there is something here that anyone feels called to do, feel free to do that. But I'll also group some of these things and see if there is a way that we can like start working on them, or how can we frame them for more people participating. So yeah, thank you everyone.